Oh, hey guys. We're live now. But I was trying to use a different app than I usually use to live stream, and I had the same problem. I was trying to use Riverside, and I met up with Steven Robles, who does a lot of stuff with Riverside, and he was here for Podcast Movement in the Chicago area like last week. It was fun to meet up and hang out with him. But he was telling me how I could do live streaming and fix my problems with getting YouTube live streaming to work from Riverside, but I still can't get it to work. So I need to look into it more. It's like I need to do some test live streams probably, because I always think I can just research it and then give it a shot when I go live. And it's not a very smart way to do things. But we're here. We got a lot to talk about tonight. It's good to see a bunch of you guys, regulars in the chat. Hey, Brian. Hey, George. Yes. Hi from Ontario, William. Hey, Saul from Hilton Head. Nice. Oh, yeah. Just rubbing it in there. Outside in shorts and a t-shirt. Mike, nice to see you. Yes. So, and as I mentioned in the chat there a minute or two ago, it's almost there. Maybe I'll just stick to using Ecamm for streaming. Yeah, I need to talk to Shane. You're right, Brian, because he's been trying different ways to stream too. I know he did a bunch of fancy stuff with his stream last week with Jimmy from Nanoleaf. And Jimmy also had some good quotes in The Verge yesterday with Jennifer Patterson Toohey about the whole tariff situation and how that's going to affect the smart home tech companies. I thought her summary of the whole situation and guess about what will happen is very insightful. And so I don't want to go too much into that here, but I just think it's hard to tell at this point how things will actually impact us as consumers buying tech, other than things might get a little more expensive or go on sale less for sure. But speaking of things that I think are cool tech that you might want to know about, regardless of where you live. So I've been working on a video about a projector that I installed recently. And last weekend I was installing that projector, and I went ahead and was like doing a bunch of stuff in my drop ceiling, right? Was using this light that I originally got for video, but I actually realized could be really handy if you're just working around your house, doing other home improvement projects, just want like a work light somewhere where you're doing work. Is these newer makes them, and Ulanzi I think makes them. There's a handful of companies, but they're like an inflatable light that rolls down, into like a small thing, and you can, let all the air out of it. And so then it's just this really small thing. So here, I'll roll it all the way up. So you could throw it in a bag, keep it in a toolbox or something, and then you have it ready to go. And then when you need a light, you can blow it up, and then there we go. So pretty easy to blow up. And then you have this big light, which I can turn on, and it's very light. And then it has magnets in the back. So rest of the 3 seconds. All right, there we go. Yeah, so it gets pretty bright. I don't need to make it go full brightness, but yeah, I find it handy for video. It'll be nice to have a light like this next year, hopefully when I cover CES or, other times. I don't know when I travel for something, but my kids think it's really fun when I have it lit up and blown up too. But yeah, I think even if you don't shoot any video or photos or anything where you need a light for that, it could be, they're usually around $50 on Amazon right now, and it could be something worth picking up. So I will, let me pull up a link. I was like completely slipped my mind to go ahead and actually like link that somewhere. So I will put that in the description or the chat. But and a lot of times they're sold as like kits. I got mine a while ago, and okay, this is basically what I got. Mine I got from Instagram shopping actually when they first launched. But enough boring details on how I purchased my light. The news this week beyond like the big sort of import export news, Aqara launched some exciting stuff, and I want to get to that, but I also want to get to homeOS, which is, Apple's rumored new operating system for the home. Mark Gurman has been mostly the main person reporting on this. Of course, the Apple Smart Display was delayed until is probably delayed until 2026. Oh well. Um, I think that's a bummer, but I mean there's still a lot of exciting stuff going on in the smart home space beyond what Apple's doing. And I think you can still be, into Apple and using Apple Home and experiencing a lot of the new stuff with Matter. And that gets into what Aqara did just, I guess it was yesterday morning now, Wednesday morning. They announced some new advanced Matter bridging, which will allow their Matter bridges to expose Aqara scenes basically as virtual switches. And then it also allows you to expose custom sensors from Aqara as occupancy sensors in another Matter ecosystem like Apple Home. And they used Apple Home in the examples. Now, I have been in all day meetings for my job the past few days, so I have not had a chance like play with this because I come home and just have a lot of life responsibilities and then have to go back to that. So haven't had to like free time really to play with any of this stuff. But I think it's a really cool idea, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. And even though I haven't had time to play with it, I just want to point you guys in that direction of where it is. And so follow up to here's the put in the chat. There's the link to it's of course the affiliate Amazon link, but just to the newer light I was talking about. They have different combo versions of it. Some have some are just bicolor, which is what I have, but they have RGB ones. And of course they're meant for video, but just something to keep in mind for so the bicolor one is the one I have, and it's just a basic one, but they're selling them now in like packs of multiple ones together. So I don't see, what I got was just the one light. But still, either way, a fun toy might be useful. So, oh yeah, and actually you guys can't even see my screen right now. So let me fix that. And I see a lot going on in the chat. I definitely want to get to that in a second. Man, I am not ready for tonight's live stream like I usually am. My apologies there. So here's the light I'm talking about from Newer. So that's that. And then let's see. Sonos was another big thing I wanted to talk about, because Sonos has a permanent price drop, at least for the foreseeable future. Again, things might change sometime soon, but right now the Era 100 is $199, and I love the Era 100. It's a great speaker. So definitely something worth checking out if you are like thinking about adding Sonos to another room or your first Sonos speaker. I think these sound better than a full-size HomePod, but I don't know. Everybody has their own opinions on that, of course, and I could see the argument the other way. But just wanted to mention that now I called this out as a deal for the spring sale, but it is now permanently $199. So, I mean, for the foreseeable future, of course. Who knows with the current world what that will be in the near future, but For the time being, it's a pretty great deal. So um, we're checking out. And Lone Star Trent in the chat has a really good point. Jumping back to the Aqara thing, we're jumping around from different topics, but Aqara actually is adding support for 22 more devices. And I saw like Smart Things had an update to add support for a bunch of the stuff. I think, that Apple added robot vacuum support already with 18.4, and some other devices with that, like leak sensors for Matter. And um, so, yeah, it's a good point. Edgar's Home Tech is mentioned, a car's leaving everyone in the dust. And I see George saying a similar thing, that a car is on fire. They're really, a car is um, really moving fast in shipping a lot of stuff. I get the impression that like a car's really scaled their probably their size of their team, but certainly like the speed at which they do things and the amount of things they're doing at any given time in smart home tech. And they're definitely a fierce competitor for a lot of other companies. I think one of the other cool things about Aqara is that they continue to ship new features in software for older devices. Because a lot of times companies, will ship the existing device. Maybe they'll have one or two software updates, but that's about it. This new feature that Aqara just announced works with a lot of their older hubs. When I first saw the news about this new Matter announcement, I thought, oh, this will be, M3 hub and the G5 hub and things. But it actually, a lot of it supports I think a lot or all of it supports like the M2 hub and, a bunch of even older hubs as well that are Zigbee focused hubs. Of course, you can't pair Matter over Thread devices with those, but you can still do a lot of the new stuff. And another cool thing that I thought they were mentioning was like some of the IR control integration, and that I didn't quite fully understand all the details of how that could work, where you could use your M3 hub especially to do some IR controls. And they have some better integrations with Home Assistant as well with this, which I thought was exciting. Um, Back to the whole I mentioned earlier, like the special sensor detection integrations. One Aqara mentioned in their marketing, which makes sense, is like face detection on a doorbell. I could also see this being really useful if you have an Aqara G5 outdoor camera that can do package detection. Of course, then you can make package detection an occupancy sensor, a virtual occupancy sensor in your Apple Home, and then do any kind of automation there. Apple Home can detect packages with HomeKit Secure Video and record those videos, but you're not able to do any kind of automation there. It might be nice to have a light inside your home change to a different color, turn on, some kind of a status light or something if you have a package at the front door. I know sometimes we get so many Amazon packages or stuff that it just like you forget that something's at the door that you should get or whatever. And so anyway, I'm excited. I agree. I think Aqara is doing some really cool stuff, and I hope it continues because I'm very excited about it. And yes, William, that was a big thing I was mentioning when Aqara did a sponsored spot in my Amazon spring sale video. Was just like the power of the M3 hub is that you can tie all this Matter over Thread devices into it. I think that Aqara really seems to be viewing themselves more and more as a place where you might want to have as like a major hub in your smart home that like has automations and knowledge of your home beyond just like a bridge to add accessories to your home, right? And with that, I think that the smart displays that I saw at CES looked super cool. Especially they have one coming with the sort of rotating dial around it with the screen in the middle. And I think having something like that, controlling a light, of course, it could be an Aqara light, but thanks to Matter, it probably, as best I could tell from CES demos, we'll see when it actually comes out. But like, it could be just a light that's compatible with Matter. And having some of these smart displays, I think, is going to be a real motivation to put devices in and automations and scenes and things over in a car system that you might have just traditionally just put in Apple Home. And I think that's even though, of course, Apple is making their own smart display and other companies are, have their own smart displays. I think some of these shapes and sizes and ways that a car's smart displays work are different than probably other companies are doing. For example, Aqara's appear to be taking advantage of the box for a switch. And so you actually install it over top of one light switch spot or two, depending on the scenario. And then it uses that to get power. So it's easier to wire than some other things. And of course, Brilliant is another notable company who's done that in the past. But I think Aqara's integrations and sort of broader ecosystem, bigger than Brilliant, is is going to be really nice. And things like being able to pull up your live camera feeds from Aqara cameras. So we'll see. We'll see when it actually launches how it performs. But I'm very excited about Aqara smart displays. So. Yeah, and that's a good point. Yeah, Andrew, they continue to update the FP2, same as like the FP1E as well, and the M3 hub, uh, and M2, like all their hubs continue to get updates. Their cameras, of course, and then another bit of Aqara news. Speaking of Aqara, and we'll get to other smart home tech companies in a minute. We just have a lot of Aqara news right now. Aqara announced a bunch of changes to their G5 camera, which has better support for NAS and local streaming and some more protocol support for different ways you might want to record video from the G5 to local NAS devices, which I think is really cool. And then there's also some other enhancements I can't remember at this point. That was like a old news story from a week ago now, but we didn't have a live stream last week to talk about that. So, hey Brian, good to see you here. Yeah, give me a roll up smart display. That's an interesting idea, Trent. I don't know. The more you mention it, at first I thought that's crazy, like who would want that? But the more I'm thinking about that, it's like actually that would be pretty cool. Because of the day I've had, this is also what I get for having dinner. Shortly before this live stream, I had a frozen pizza, so like my throat is my throat needs some water. So sorry about that. So we talked about the Air 100. Another big news thing, not a big news thing, but I think it's an interesting detail, and we haven't heard more about it, is Philips team, the Philips Hue app team made kind of a not so great mistake and published inside of their app some images of their new doorbell. So we'll see when this comes out or what the plan is there, but I think it's interesting that Philips Hue is doing a doorbell. Of course, Philips Hue has really gone all into their own security monitoring system. You've probably heard about that. It's been a few years now, but this doorbell is another big product of theirs. So we'll see if it actually comes out. But this is like end of March. This was mentioned and I noticed it. So I don't know if I would be really interested in this because I don't really use much of Philips Hue's home security monitoring. I just have their smart lights. But again, cool if you're into Philips Hue. And I think doorbells are just such a popular category in the smart home. And Philips Hue is, of course, such a big company. It makes sense for them to do a doorbell because they haven't had one. So It's about time, I think, that they actually have a doorbell. So hopefully that comes out sometime soon if it's already showing up in their customer app in builds. Hidden. The images are like hidden in the build is kind of how people found this. Yes, William. Good question on going back to Aqara. PoE cameras, of course, need PoE switches. I talked about this in my video on that camera, but um, PoE, for those who don't know, is power over Ethernet. And then you need something that will inject that power signal into the Ethernet wire so that you can get power on the other end for your camera. I've just continued to use my Ubiquity switches that provide PoE. You can actually use Ubiquity switches without using a Ubiquity Unify system. Now, I should caveat that with I've never done it without first setting it up with a Ubiquity system because I just like unplugged mine, right? And I'm using Eero now. But like that's what I've been using. Um, in the past, I've used TP-Link switches and been pretty impressed with them. I'm not sure if TP-Link has a PoE option, but I would look at TP-Link for that. It looks like they do. There's also the other thing you might consider if you're just doing it with a couple cameras. TP-Link actually sells, and among other companies, sell PoE injectors. So then somewhere along the chain for the Ethernet cable, you just add the PoE injector, and then that's going to add the power into that particular Ethernet line. Of course, it's not quite as elegant. If you have a bunch of PoE cameras, then you might want to get a switch that supports PoE. But maybe folks in the chat have some other ideas of PoE types of switches that William could use. I would lean to TP-Link and or maybe Netgear. Both of those have been solid options for me in the past. But again, currently I'm using Ubiquity. They're also very good. The caveat is I'm not 100% sure on if you could set one up new out of the box from scratch without already having the Ubiquity system. Some of them I'm sure would work. Some of them wouldn't. You might have to do some checking there before buying them. But they are good switches and they have a lot of PoE options. So, yeah, one to consider, but probably a little more expensive than, let's say, a TP-Link option. And whoops. Lone Star Trent is mentioning too that he has a Linksys 24-port PoE switch. Cool. So that's another company to consider. Oh, cool. TP-Link also has a decent outdoor switch. Thanks for the tip, George. Oh yeah. Make Smart Matter. Nice to see you here. Thanks for joining the chat. And another great YouTube channel out there talking about smart home tech. But speaking of the Aqara doorbell, I think is what you're mentioning. When is theirs coming out? I'm not sure. They were mentioning at CES, I think the report was like fall or second half of this year. So we'll see. I'm sure recent events might delay product launches to a certain extent. Certainly, product launches that will be coming anytime soon, I think are delayed in certain cases. But yeah, I don't think we have anything coming anytime soon from Aqara on the new doorbell. But I would love to see it. I think that'll be really nice to get a 2K image instead of 1080p. And then also the aspect ratio is not quite what I'd want, which was a full vertical view, but it is a little bit more improved aspect ratio of memory serves. Now, this is off the top of my head from CES. I think they moved to a 4:3 aspect ratio instead of 16:9, but this should help you see more of people at the door than their current version. So yeah, if you're looking at Aqara's doorbell, it's a great option. But given that they have a doorbell just around the corner, hopefully later this year, we'll see. I would wait for that. If you're in the market for a HomeKit doorbell, if you can hold off. Yeah, Yeah, and thanks everyone for the responses to William's question. And yes, also another thing, speaking of Aqara, it's like they can't move. They move so fast, but they also can't move fast enough. The FP300 is the other cool thing. I know someone earlier mentioned the FP2. Aqara has all these presence sensors. So thank you, Eric, for bringing that up. The FP300 is going to be their wireless presence sensor. So I'm looking forward to trying that in my closet because we don't really have any outlets in our walk-in closet. And it's one where we keep the door open a lot, so you can't really put a door sensor on the walk-in closet. So I think the FP300 will be a really nice option there because I've tried various motion sensors and that doesn't really work when you stand in the closet for a minute, then the lights go off. And, there are ways to time the motion sensor depending on how you're automating it, of course, but a presence sensor is going to give you that better source of truth of like, yes, there's actually someone standing there. And so far, like I've had issues with the FP2s over time myself, but I've had great success with the FP1E, especially as I mentioned in my home tour. I have it in my laundry room and that's plugged in. It's one of a car's presence sensors that has to go into an outlet for power. But yeah, it sits in there, and it does struggle a little bit in certain cycles of the washing machine where it thinks it's a person in there, so it'll keep the lights on. But otherwise, it does a pretty good job keeping the lights off. Then you walk in, the lights come on. So, oh, cool. Yes, got make smart matter some subscribers. That's great. Um, Eero has a switch, Joel. I know that. Oh yeah, Eero has the PoE gateway, which is like the main hub. I didn't know Eero has a PoE switch. Um. Anyways, yeah, people have been telling me after I made my Eero video that I should try the Eero PoE gateway. We'll see. My big stance that I took in that video, and I still stand by, is yes, I think that there's definitely benefits. There will always be benefits to running physical wires. And I think, certain cases like running wires to your cameras with PoE, you can get some reliable video connections there. But in general, I think Wi-Fi 7 is such a leap forward in capacity, and a lot of times with the Wi-Fi 7 access points, maybe that's not necessarily 100% Wi-Fi 7 as much as it's also just like beefed up access points that are meant to handle more devices as smart homes have become more common. And of course, these wireless access points that are built, they probably are planned years in advance. So the ones planned from smart home tech becoming more popular, let's say a couple of years ago, are now starting to come to market or are already out in the market. And so I think that's where something like, you don't even need necessarily to buy the Eero Max 7 or an Eero PoE gateway to have a smart home. You can get an Eero Pro 7 and still be complete, or a set of Eero Pro 7s and still be completely fine. That's what I'm streaming to you now on. And of course, this is hardwired because it's a live stream. There's still, I think, PoE cameras and maybe, computers you use a lot. Those are maybe some cases to do hardwired connections. But overall, I think more and more and more of your smart home can become Wi-Fi based. And I don't think it's the end of the world like it was 3 or 4 years ago. So we'll see how that actually pans out over time, but so far so good. I've continued to have a lot of things like my Apple TVs on Wi-Fi, the new projector that I mentioned, that's on Wi-Fi. Just a lot of other stuff in my home is now Wi-Fi, moving more that way. So we'll see. But yeah, I think the Eero one I think is just a gateway. I'm not familiar with the switch, but maybe I'm wrong there. Oh yeah. So yeah, because Joel's saying it's called the gateway because it's meant to be like the main core of your network. So like that would replace your main access point, which if you have Eero, that could work out well. So I guess I get where you're coming from, Joel, that sorry, you could buy the Eero gateway and then make it the center of your Eero network and then you also have PoE there. So could work out. All right. Waterball 365. Nice to see you here. Yeah, no worries. I get that all the time. But yes, good to have you join. Another regular here. Got a lot of folks here. I know our friend Shane is enjoying vacation down in Florida, I think. So been following his Instagram stories and looks like he's having a great time, which is great. But of course, missed live stream with him yesterday. So glad that I can be here for the live stream this week during a vacation week. So yeah, we do need Wi-Fi 7 cameras, Lone Star Trent. I agree. I think that would be really nice. Especially taking advantage of some of the new multi-link stuff and like operating at 6 gigahertz, maybe in certain cases would actually work well for cameras. I'm sure that there's a debate to be had there, but we'll see. Wi-Fi 7, I think, would make a lot of sense in cameras, in surveillance cameras. Oh yeah, and PoE, yes. Someone can always cut your wire. Although Ethernet cable is pretty thick. It'd be, you'd have to have some serious clippers to cut some Ethernet. But yes, it is a physical thing that can be chopped. Yeah, I agree. Make Smart Matter is a good point. It's like $700 is a lot for Wi-Fi. And I mean, of course, Ubiquity, which I know a lot of folks are fans of, and I don't think it's a bad option, right? I just, being a YouTuber, I want to try stuff, so I'm trying Eero and doing the whole Eero thing, but like I don't think Ubiquity is a bad option. Anyways, but Ubiquity quickly gets into $1,000 range, and then you have Eero getting more expensive. I remember, I think the Eero Pro 6 routers I got, that was probably somewhere around like $400 or $500 for a set of 3. And of course, well, I shouldn't say of course in this day and age, but in the past, Eero has brought down the prices of older models. So hopefully, Wi-Fi 7 will come down market. Also, depending on the size of your home, you might be able to get away with a 2 Eero Pro 7 setup. It depends, or you could mix and match, maybe with some older Eeros. So there are options, but I agree. It's, even though $700, it's like, not springing for the high end system per se. Of course, Eero also has the PoE system, but that, as I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but you were mentioning earlier, the gateway. Joel was mentioning the gateway for Eero, but that's just the main hub, and then you need to get access points. So you're quickly looking at $700 probably for that kind of a setup, at least, or higher. So yeah, it's just a lot of money. Yeah, I kind of picked up on that drop. Yeah, it's $700. It's a lot of money. And that's why I mentioned in that video, like I went with that instead of the Eero Max 7, which is even their more higher end one, just because, as I said in the video, I don't want my Wi-Fi routers to cost more than my refrigerator. It's can quickly become that way. Yeah, it's a good point. There's also like, there are a lot of other options in the Wi-Fi 7 area too. Um, and that can, I've heard good things about TP-Link's ones, but I haven't tried them myself. But there's also, I mean, pretty much every company these days is making a Wi-Fi 7 thing. What I tried Netgear and Linksys for Wi-Fi 6 back in the day. It's hard to do too many reviews. I'm not really set up well to do like lots of network reviews. They're channels that talk way more about this stuff than I do. But trying Linksys, and I think Linksys sent me their Velop system with Wi-Fi 6, and then there was a Netgear one I tried as well, or a couple different Netgear ones. Maybe one of those they sent me, I can't remember. But yeah, I just find sometimes a company's software isn't quite at the level of their hardware, and so then the whole management of the system isn't quite there. That's why I like Eero and Ubiquiti, because both of them have very good software. And it's not to say that everybody else has terrible software, and there are some good spots, but that's kind of why I lean to those two vendors, is they understand how to make a good mobile app and a good experience to control it all. And that's the other big point. I think Ryan brings up a good point around Unify, is that it's so modular. And so, if I was just managing my own smart home and not trying to make interesting content about stuff, and I wanted to move to Wi-Fi 7, right, I could just swap out even just one, but let's say both of my Wi-Fi 6 access points, and keep the rest of my system intact. And then I'd have Wi-Fi 7 without having to spend as much, because I'm not replacing my entire system. So of course, with a lot of these mesh systems, you go from Wi-Fi 6 to Wi-Fi 7, and you got to buy all new access points, which means your whole system is new. So I think there's simplicity in that, and I think you know smart home tech isn't going to become mainstream, so to speak, until the basic Wi-Fi router that people can buy at or at least maybe like the step up from basic, right? Like the good Wi-Fi router, but not insanely expensive Wi-Fi router, it like gives someone plenty of capacity for their smart home. I think that's what I'm kind of keeping an eye on. But at the same time, yeah, it's like Ubiquiti is still a great option out there. So yes, and that's how I was for a while too, Hall in tech. Um, I've always set up family members with Eero, tends to be a good option for family. Of course, they are getting slightly more Amazon oriented over time, but um, it's it's still pretty separate, and you can kind of avoid a lot of that stuff. But yeah, lots of good comments on Mesh. So let's see. We talked about, I think, all the different news stories that I wanted to get to today. But one thing to keep in mind too, I just want to mention, of course, I don't like to talk too much about tariffs or other like sort of current event details here on the channel, but I think as we're potentially, it seems like getting into to difficult times for a lot of the smart home companies we know and love, especially the smaller companies. Just if you're, it's a good time to realize that, if you can and you're interested and you need a product, like to support uh the smaller companies that you want to see continue to do well, right? Like just vote with your money. Things like, even if you don't necessarily live in places affected by any of these changes, like just knowing that you're still revenue for that company, right? um Things like the Tailwind garage door controller I reviewed last year. That's a great garage door controller, small company. RA Home, ARRE Home, the Matter company that makes great buttons and door sensors and all kinds of stuff. Even slightly bigger companies, but just like if you're thinking about a company you like and want to see them continue to make products, like I haven't heard anything from any specific company about, oh, they're in trouble or on the rocks. Nanoleaf was one that I mentioned at the top of the show, was in The Verge for their CEO talking. Lifx is the Luna that I recently reviewed. Of course, a lot of these companies, like some of them have bigger corporate backing, some of them don't. But just if you like their products and you need something, or you're in the market for something, voting with your money and just supporting the companies that you care about can at least be something to help them keep going. So as I loved how Jimmy was saying in that article in The Verge, it's like every year for Nanoleaf is a make or break year, right? They're a smaller company, and so they gotta hit a certain level every year just to kind of keep going for the next year, and I hope they continue many years into the future. So yeah, Lone Star Trend, I agree. I mean, there are definitely some people in the comments of that video who would beg to differ with you, but yeah, I think I really like so. Um, Context on Lifx, if you're maybe vaguely familiar with Lifx or not, they are an Australian-based lighting company, and they were bought by Fight Electric, which is FEIT, I think is how you spell it. They're like a big, I think US based electrical company that does like a lot of light bulbs and lighting and stuff. You've probably seen them in your hardware store. And that was a number of years ago now that they acquired Lifx, but it's like seeing them both together at CES this year really got the sense that like Lifx is coming into like a renaissance of its own now with like a bigger parent company behind it. Still the same CEO. It seems like still a lot of the same people, but they're really moving on all cylinders. And like this Luna lamp that I reviewed on the channel at the beginning of the week, that is, I think, just the beginning of a lot of hopefully a lot of new products from Lifx that I think will like really make them a much more relevant and current player in the lighting space. I think for a while there, in kind of this transition period, they didn't really have a lot of new stuff, especially for us Apple home users. And I think now with Matter and just a renewed energy at that company, I think they're continuing to make some cool stuff. And I've always loved Lifex's design. I played with some of their lights and like 4 or 5 years ago, I think was the last time I used Lifx until the Luna now. But I've always loved their design of their app and just like design of some of their products and their website and stuff. So it's a cool company. And so if you're wondering what is this Luna thing that I'm talking about here, let me pull up this page. Yes, so here's the Luna. And it's just kind of a cool little lamp. I actually put mine, I think a use case that isn't really shown here on their product page that I really like for this. So the mount is actually has adhesive on the back, as well as this hole for a screw. And you can make a really easy way to mount like sort of a downlight for a shelf or some other piece of furniture where you might want that kind of like cool accent colored light shining down on stuff. You can put this sort of mounted, and I did it just in the shelf in my office for some kind of fun accent lighting scenes. But yeah, I think it could. Oh yeah, and look who it is here on there. They put my video up there. It was not sponsored. They sent me the product, but I think I was just genuinely pleased, enjoyed the product. There are definitely some things I'd like to be better, like the ability to clearly see an on-off option on there. And I think maybe ways to limit the brightness in the app, but overall really cool light. And you can go check out my video on it. But yeah, I think making it a downlight and some shelving, I think is a cool thing that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about as potential, and just something I get utility or use out of it doing that. So all right. Oh, bummer. I'm so thank you, Cass, for the heads up. Yeah, so at the Home Depot, let's see. I'm getting 7 available ship to store, and then or 7 available delivery tomorrow where I live. Oh wow, they this is definitely more no, it is. This is the same price. Yeah, $70. And 7 available tomorrow. But that might not be true for everybody. I think maybe some regions it's sold out. But So yeah, bummer. I'm sorry if it's not there. Um, oh, they are updating some of their older products with Matter. That's great. Good to hear, Al, because I know that was a complaint of a lot of people. Oh, interesting. That's a good point, Brian. Um, yeah, I mean it's something I've dealt with in the past with my day job. It's like knowing if something is in stock is actually harder than you might think. So I can sympathize with Home Depot there. I do not work for Home Depot. Um, but yeah, it's inventory. There's probably some of you folks out there maybe have worked with inventory or order status or stuff like that, e-commerce. Um, so I think we've covered just about everything. Man, this live stream really flew by. A lot of great feedback from you guys in the chat and a lot of news stories to cover. I'm sure, as in the past few live streams, there'll be some big news tomorrow that breaks or something else that we couldn't get to. But yeah, I think we'll call it a night here. Thank you so much for joining, and really enjoyed talking. It's good to be back on the live stream after a week off, and hopefully see you around. So, and hopefully what I was saying tonight made sense. I know I've been pretty brain dead after a long week with a lot of stuff going on with my job. But yeah. Anyways, thanks for joining, and I'll see you soon. See you in the next video, I guess. Bye.